I am very happy to have Tom Scanlan, publisher of Surplus Record in Chicago. I have known Tom a while. He is a fixture in the used machine tool business. And so just want to first tell everybody what surplus record is and get some history, and then we got all kinds of things we're going to grill you on. So first, Tom, give us the quick explanation of what surplus record is, and then how we got where we are today.
All right. Well, thank you, Noah, and good to be with both you and Lloyd and everybody at Graff-Pinkert. I was introduced to Graff-Pinkert, to Leonard Graff and Aaron Binkert back in 1982, and they were great in training me about screw machines, Whitman screw machines. But anyway, Surplus Record started in 1924 by my grandfather. It's a publication. It's the world's largest and only publication left of used machinery and equipment, industrial, electrical, and power equipment.
Print publication.
And it's publication, but it's monthly. And we have 137,000 subscribers. 99% of them are U.S. and Canada. Fortunately, in 1995, my brother, who was living in San Francisco, told me to put everything on the internet. And then in 2000, he met these guys that told me to start advertising and putting a surplus record all over the internet, which was early.
Back in 95.
1995, we put everything on the internet very, very quickly. And most of our advertisers, as Lloyd will remember at MBNA meetings, they didn't even know what the internet was. They did nothing, and we gave demonstrations. I brought a computer and an image where we could all look at the internet, and they all like to see surplus record for about 15 minutes, and then they want to see everything else, sports and other issues, because none of them even knew what the internet was. But they all thanked me.
AOL and
that was about it. I told them to get email addresses and told them to reserve their website. They didn't even know what a website was. I said to reserve their names so that they could get, like Graff-Pinkert.com and things like that. So they were all grateful because that was 1996.
So there's an irony there, because you are the only people printing, yet you were the first to be online.
And the first printer. The first printer was Surplus Record was started by my grandfather in 1924.
Wow.
And yes, and we've had many people come. Our office is downtown Chicago. We've been in the Opera House since 1937, and many of the even representatives from Google, when the Google started. My brother was a Berkeley graduate, and he knew guys that were starting at Google in the late 1990s, and they even came to our office in the early 2000s, and they were impressed with all the surplus record, and we have a poster that we were their third advertiser.
All right, Tom, tell us give us a picture of what surplus record looks like, and what exactly is on it. Lots of machine tools are listed on it, used. Paint us a picture of it.
Yes,
what you would find on the internet, what you would find in a book.
The internet is updated all day long by the advertisers. The advertisers are strictly machinery and equipment and electrical power dealers. In other words, that they're in the business of buying and selling used equipment. The manufacturing plants never made sense to advertise because they're usually in a hurry to dispose of or have a liquidation, where our advertisers do a lot of rebuilding and things like that. So that's what they do. So the difference between the printed surplus record and the surplusrecord.com, the website, is the website's updated all day long. So when, for example, if Graff-Pinkert, if Noah has a new screw machine or CNC machine that he wants to put on, he puts it on surplus record, and it'll be live on our website within a couple hours, and then it would be in the next monthly printed surplus record. So that's primarily the difference. Is the surplusrecord.com has complete specs, photos, and it's updated, like I said, all day long, and it's a lot more vast information, and it's very transparent. The nice thing about surplusrecord.com, which many of the manufacturers say, is that we don't ask anyone to register to get information. In other words, we're very transparent. When you go into surplus record and you look for a Wickman screw machine, it says Graff-Pinkert, and it says your phone number and your name and all that, where some of our online competitors in the used machinery equipment business,
right,
all of them do not show any information.
Like Machinio, when you click on it, you don't know who it is, and then
correct. Where surplus record is totally identifies. We do also have surplus records total information on the internet, and in other words, we don't. Our phone number and all that is all on there, so they can call us for any information, and we do get approximately 6, 7, 8 calls a day from manufacturers about to buy or sell to one of our advertisers because because they know surplus record, they trust us. We're in Wikipedia, as you well know, Encyclopedia Britannica, surplus record is. So they trust us, and they ask for information just to make sure that who they're buying from or selling from is safe. And we give them that information all the time. And we visit many of the, almost 90% of our advertisers we visit. Our John Stevenson, our salesman on the East Coast, and I do.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, we've known us for so long, yet you stopped by Graff-Pinkert's office. Why do you do that?
Well, because it really helps with the manufacturers who call, because when they call for credit references and our accountant's there, basically all she does is say, yeah, they pay their bills. With me, when I'm in the office, I like those phone calls, and if someone calls and says, hey, I'm about to buy or sell a Wickman screw machine with Graff-Pinkert, and when I'm in the office, I say, oh, are you dealing with Lloyd or Noah? And you can believe the manufacturer would say,
you must have an amazing memory.
You know them? They're shocked. Oh no, I've known him forever. And they don't even ask questions about. Once they find that out, they don't even say, well, does he pay his bill or anything? They say, oh, great, thanks, bye. So the other interesting thing we've gotten from manufacturers, really, this is something new, Noah, because I've been taking a lot of phone calls that the circulation department, we have 13 employees, and the circulation department's our largest department at Surplus Record, because like I said, we have 137,000 subscribers, and we got to build that up and keep it updated, because it's expensive to mail the Surplus Record out to and have a mistake. But anyway, this last few weeks, we've gotten 3 calls from manufacturers that I'd never heard from before, where they said, how come we haven't gotten a surplus record? Well, I'd look online and I say, well, that's, they only have 8 or 10 or 20 employees, they don't get the surplus record every month. It depends. If you get the surplus record every month, that's because you have 100 or more employees. But
Yeah.
I'll say, okay, yeah, we'll send you an extra copy right now, and that's fine. And they're like, yeah, thank you. We're really worried. And this is something we've never had before. We're really worried that the internet's going to go down, and surplus record is the only solution to any of us losing any type of equipment, whether it's electrical equipment or machinery.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. And we got 3 calls in the past 2 weeks from manufacturers saying the same thing. And they're all thinking that because of all the other illness issues that are going on right now.
It just seems like it's so slow. It's so slow. Print, like, I mean,
yeah.
In this day and age, getting something once a month, I don't know. Although it's true that we'll have a machine that'll sit there for a year, so maybe once a month is enough. But what I'll say is, I use surplus record like every day, and I don't think you even mentioned it, which is it's like a bulletin board. You put something up that you're buying or selling. It goes to people that have a subscription. It costs nothing.
Correct.
And I don't think doesn't cost.
Oh,
yeah.
No cost, right?
And it's brilliant. I mean, like, I found some machines the other day, just way out in the boonies. A rare end user put some machines on there, but, you put the right thing on there, you'll get 5 calls in a day.
Correct.
But you've only had this for how long? 10, 15 years, this feature?
Which feature?
Just like the instant thing.
Oh, no, we've had that since we did that back in the very beginning in the late 1990s. It's on the home page. It's the third link down, list machinery, equipment, wanted or for sale, a free service. It's very transparent. And
so how do you make money from that?
We don't. It's
right.
If the only way we make money is if like a lot of manufacturers post items for sale, but if our advertisers buy it, then they'll advertise it with us. So that's how, that's good. So that happens many times. Not all of our advertisers end up buying it, or they might buy it and sell it. I've had many of advertisers who will call and say, Tom, I advertised a CNC machining center, or a CNC lathe or whatever, or a screw machine. And they'll call and say, I just put it on surplus record, 10 days ago, and I already sold it. Thank you, Tom. It was great, but I need to delete it, and I'm sorry. Obviously it's not going to be billed because it's not going to go into the printed surplus record. It was online and it sold so fast, and I feel like I should pay a commission. I've had many advertisers tell me they want to send us a commission, and I said no. If you look on page 1 of surplus record, it says surplus record, an exclusive publishing entity, is not affiliated directly or indirectly in any manner or means with any auctioneer, corporation, or individual buying and or selling machinery and equipment. So we do not take commissions. And that was a critical ranking by when Google audited us. They saw that we were not taking commissions, and just like they don't do. And they were very, very impressed with that. And in 2017, the other thing that Google did was they started ranking high all the publications, newspapers, magazines, and all that, as opposed to blogs, like some of our competitors, which are basically blogs. They're not really magazines. So that's really helped.
What's wrong with blogs? Got a problem with blogs?
Yeah, that was a huge issue. That was a huge issue in 2017 during the election with the presidential election. They had a huge conflict, and they found out that many of the blogs that were on there, about both candidates for president, many of the blogs were false, and the newspapers, magazines were, almost always correct. So the Google algorithm said, well, we're going to trust magazines and newspapers more than we trust
our blog is never wrong.
blog. Right.
So.
Yeah. And so they've been doing that consistently. So thank God we're a publication.
Ted, did you have something on your mind? You seem like you have something on your mind.
I do. I'm wondering, do you take advertising from auctioneers, and how have auctioneers changed your business?
That's a good question. Historically, we did not take back, in the 19, until basically about 2000. In 2005, I think we started taking auctioneers advertising, and it was Denny Hoff at Hoff Machinery became one of the first auctioneers or dealers, large machinery dealers who became an auctioneer. So then more and more dealers became auctioneers.
Right, it's a gray area now.
Them. Yeah, so it used to be that it was, and the MBNA was the same thing. The MBNA did not take a lot of auctioneers as members, but then it turned out that many of the dealers, MBNA dealers, became auctioneers. But like I said, it was really Denny Hoff was the first dealer who became an online auction company, and he would list every auction the items that he had. The main items that he had in the auction on surplusrecord.com, not in the Surplus Record magazine, because this would be going to press or be online quickly and be off. But yeah, every line was on there. Every listing that he had for the auction would be on surplusrecord.com in the correct categories, and there would be an auction link to his auction, and he loved it. Many of all the auctioneers do that now, and they all love it because it takes them. It gets on Google right away, and they find out that they can identify it. But it doesn't last in surplusrecord.com long. I mean, it's on there for 30 days at the most.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer the question?
I didn't realize that you took auction ads on the .com publication.
Yeah, it was like back in, and it was because the guys who started off with it were all my advertisers anyway.
Okay.
They just went into this other, they do two businesses now. They do their machinery business and equipment business, buying and selling, but they also do auctions. Many of them do.
Sure. I have another question for you. And I was going to save this for a little later, but I'm very interested in this question. And that is, let's say I'm an investor and I come to you, Tom, and I say, Tom, look, you're a veteran of this business. Now let's just say that you're 22 years old, getting out of school, but you know what you know. You know what you know today. But you don't have the money. So I come to you and say, Tom, look, here's $1 million. I want you to start a publication knowing all of what you've learned from 96 years with Surplus Record. How would you use that $1 million today to start a publication? Would you duplicate Surplus Record, or would you start something different?
That's a great question.
That is a good question. That's a good thought. I think that I would consider doing something different. Maybe different because Surplus Record is fine for that industry. So I would come up with something, a different type of industry. Surplus Record did try other industries back in the 40s and the 50s, and it might be a good idea to try something like that again.
What did they try?
They did agriculture and and primarily that, and then, but that did not succeed. They did that for a couple of years, but I would I would consider that that would be something that would be would be a nice future.
What do you mean by agriculture? What do you mean try
it was a
agriculture?
magazine for, like.
Oh, a magazine.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And the critical thing, though, the hardest thing, Lloyd, is to have you have to have the subscribers, and you have to have the mailing list, and that's and we have like I said, we have a good mailing list. So when you do something into another industry that's not what we have, that is your, like you said, not only printing and postage and all that, but it's also getting the mailing list ready to mail to. That's very, very expensive and difficult.
You mean you would start a magazine?
Yeah. Yeah, if it was the right industry.
Why would you start a print magazine in 2020?
Oh, because if I had, like I said, if I had the right industry and the contacts that I thought would be where they could use, where they, where surplus, kind of like Surplus Record, where Surplus Record has many guys who get Surplus Record. Many of my advertisers get phone calls from Surplus Record, because there's a lot of buyers who really want to get on the phone and call them. They don't want to send them, or a lot of them send requests for quotes, but there are many, because Surplus Record has everyone's phone numbers, including yours. So they get on the phone and call them. And remember, half of Surplus Record is electrical. And my electrical guys who sell transformers, motors, circuit breaker, bus duct, gear reducers, and generators and all that. Half of my advertisers tell me that half of the inquiries they get from Surplus Record, are from the phone, because guys call them and they don't have time to get a quote. They want to know when they can ship it. So I would think of a some type of industry where there's an urgency, where people don't have time to really, where half the guys say, I don't want to log on. This is great, the publication. I'm a maintenance guy in the shop, and in the 300 horse motor.
How old are these guys, though? How old are these guys?
I think they're older than the millennials. Exactly. Yeah.
So are you talking about starting a Granger for used equipment?
Oh, I didn't think about that. No, I haven't. I didn't think about anything like that. I just was, that's what I would just consider is what would I do? What would I do is something where there was a industry where there was an urgency, and I'm not sure if that is an urgency, but you probably know better than I do.
So you think those kind of machines, though, for electrics, transformers, etc., do you think that's a better used machinery business? And that clearly lends itself better to Surplus Records. That's what it sounds like.
For sure. With the my electrical advertisers say that the publication is huge, because they do say that they've got guys in the shop who don't have time to go log on. They don't. They need this now, and they all trust Surplus Record, and they trust the sellers, and so instead of to go on
eBay, I think our electrician goes on eBay a lot to get parts, because it's a place that's you can get used parts.
Yeah, right. And but with the nice part about Surplus Record, as opposed to eBay, is Surplus Record identifies who the sellers are with their phone. eBay does not do that. eBay does not give the phone number. And so you're in the plant and you need a new bus duct, or or you need a new, or a boiler burns out and you need that, and if you go to eBay, it's going to take you a half an hour or hours to get a quote. With surplus record, it takes you 1 minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you? So it sounds like you feel like owning this publication. It's a job that gives you purpose. Would you say it gives you a lot of purpose, and how could you articulate that?
Well, yeah, we remember we have 137,000 subscribers, and it's confident that they that they trust the sellers, and I think that's very good. I think that as far as the future is concerned, I don't know. I mean, I hope we may, I hope the publication and surplus record goes for another, 20 years, but I can't predict anything like that. You never know what's going to happen. But, like right now, the amount of manufacturers, like I said, that have been calling, making sure they got the printed surplus record was kind of interesting during this whole crisis that we have. So, I just want to say that it's still a monthly publication where, many people still, they want it. And of course you get, we'll get calls where from the manufacturing plants that say, hey, so-and-so retired, and here, send this to this, and here's the new plant manager.
Right.
So
no, but it just sounds to me like the thing that keeps you going is that you create these connections between people. That's what it sounds like to me.
I think so. It's very transparent, and our advertising department and our circulation department, our advertising department does very well with the advertisers, and in terms of getting their machinery and equipment, or electric and power equipment, listed in surplusrecord.com right away, and it goes into the next publishing. And our circulation department is, like I said, our largest sector of our business. They have to manage 137,000 subscribers in the U.S. and Canada. And
that's a ton.
That's right. And so you want to keep it updated, because you want to be able to send the printed surplus record to the right guys in the factories.
Okay, so if you were starting a new publication, how would you build that circulation? Where would you get the names?
That's a
Indians.
That's a question I would ask my circulation director, Tom Dean. Lloyd, and I'm sure that he would come up. I mean, he's been our circulation director for now over 20 years. But I would. That's a question that I would ask him. Because Lloyd, I'm not sure how he would do it, because he's an expert on that.
There's hundreds and hundreds of people who sell names. Most of them are phony. Most of them.
Exactly.
So if you're starting up and you've got a limited amount of funds, how do you build names? How do you build viable names?
I would say that and Tom Dean would probably agree that you start, like, for example, let's say you were starting a directory of used machinery and equipment. Well, and you want dealers to advertise, and this surplus record doesn't exist, and it's just you're just starting this. You would contact the MBNA, Machinery Dealers National Association, and get the list of all of their members. So I would say that depending on what industry you're trying to deal with, you would go to their appropriate membership group that deals to, because that's honest and trustworthy and accurate, just like the MBNA. I mean, the MBNA, all their members are, but you would have to come up with an industry that has that, association that's relevant. That's what I would say, the associations.
And isn't it difficult to find professional associations that are both relevant and big enough to be able to give you that kernel of people to start?
Some are and some aren't. For example, you've got certain manufacturing associations by the state or regions, and they do release all of their members' names, and there are some that don't. But there are. So that's the issue, is some don't release their contacts, and the ones that do, though, that is, Lloyd, that is a good list. That's 100% accurate, because they're all the membership is accurate for most, especially these associations that have been around for years and years and years, like the electrical association of all the electrical motor shops, one down in St. Louis. That's an association that's been around since 1940. We're members of that association too, just like the MBNA. And that's a great membership. Everybody in there, you can find out every electrical motor dealer and generator and all the transformer dealers. They're all members there, and that's very honest and trustworthy. But there's other associations that they don't release the contacts. So you're right. It's about 50-50.
Tom, why have associations been so inept at exchange of information about buying and selling equipment between their members?
You mean, like, what's an example? You mean like the
MBNA is an example of being completely helpless as far as sharing information from one dealer to a next about inventory.
Really?
I'm not aware that they.
I don't understand.
They don't do that?
No.
Huh.
The association is not involved in sharing information about equipment from one dealer to another. That independent organizations such as yours serves that purpose.
So what would you propose, Deb?
Are you talking?
What would you envision as? I'm trying to envision something that isn't there.
Well, the MBNA has attempted to share information about changes in inventory, and they found that the members are reluctant to do that. But they will advertise in Surplus Record. They'll advertise in machinetools.com. They'll advertise, on Machinio and attempt to build their own lists. That is, people are really interested in sharing amongst potential competitors.
I think I'll tell you what I think is the answer, Lloyd, is the first of all, the amount, this is historic. We've talked about this. The amount of stocking machinery dealers in the MBNA and just in the entire country, even non-MBNA members, the amount of stocking machinery dealers, and you would agree with this, is probably half of what they were 15, 12 years ago. And there's so many more, dealers, so to speak, MBNA members. There's more MBNA members now than in the past that are just brokers. They don't really stock. They don't really own or stock and you think back to 20, 25, 30 years ago, that was hardly at all. And there's just more and more, even surplus record advertisers and dealers uh, and MBNA members who don't actually own it. They're just brokering it. Yes. And so there's fewer, and we see this all the time. For example, Rayco, one of the largest machinery dealers in the country and in Illinois, when they retired and closed up, there's no one who has taken their place in terms of in Illinois. There's no new machinery dealers in Illinois or that are stocking dealers that have come out, and are even close to the same size as Rayco. No one. Most of the new advertisers that we get in Illinois, for the most part, and for the whole country, many of them are do not stock. They're basically brokering. So I think that's the answer.
So the broker, you're saying, are you implying the broker is afraid to trade that information amongst
yes.
people who could poach that information for their own use?
Exactly, because they are all concerned. I talked to them. They're all good guys, and they're very concerned that the machines, the equipment that they're brokering, is going to be found out by another dealer, and someone else is going to advertise.
Well, that's certainly logical.
Right, and so they want to keep it. They don't want to keep it to themselves. I mean, they don't want to identify who the manufacturing plant is that they're broking and selling from.
Okay,
Sure.
So does that make an association like the MBNA obsolete?
No, I think that they really do a good job of and the dealers who are stocking dealers are really transparent. For the most part, they give out all their information. They have pictures of their plant, of their warehouse. We have, as you well know, we have advertisers, and just like yourself, who have large warehouses full of the equipment. And they usually identify that with photos and things like that. And the guys who are brokers, they don't have that. But I think the MBNA is good about identifying the guys who are stocking dealers. They have they put the links to their websites.
I got a letter today, or a missive today on the web from the MBNA asking me to pay my dues. And every year I go through this. Why should I be a member of the MBNA anymore? I have your publication. I have machinetools.com. I have Machinio. I have Machine Seeker.
And we have contacts from 70 years.
I have 50,000 mailing list that we've developed, and Noah spends so much time sending out advertising pieces, and we devote a lot of effort to our website. Where does the MBNA fit in anymore for Graff-Pinkert and for other dealers like us?
Well, I know that, and I don't think it's diminished at all. There are many manufacturing plants who trust from buying or to sell to members of the MBNA. So I think that's part of it.
Tom,
there are some guys who still
nobody
do that.
has asked me if we were members of the MBNA for many years.
The only people who ask you that is other members of the MBNA. They might ask you that.
They used to do that all the time. Right, Lloyd? They would do that, but now they just
more
don't.
often, yes.
Right. And I think that part of it has to do with they already know, because they can go to the mbna.org website and discover that you are a member. So they might not, especially if they're curious. But there's more informative information about, Graff-Pinkert, that they probably say, hey, I know enough about them. I know that they're, they've been in, if you look at Graff-Pinkert and Surplus Record, it says you've been advertising. In Surplus Record, it identifies you as been an advertiser since 1943. And I think
Wow.
that it gives it, it gives you a gold, a highlighted relationship, but it also identifies you as a number one advertiser, highly ranked. So, as far as the MBNA is concerned, I think it's good that they published who you are, and I'm sure, but I agree. There's probably lesser buyers out there who even know who the MBNA is, like where they used to be very, very popular. If you think back to the MBNA with the 1940s and 50s and 60s. The MBNA members in the 70s, to a certain extent, used to go to Congress and would often be in Congress and in the Senate and making prosecution and making giving them advice and also giving them issues, especially regarding, as you well remember, regarding the manufacturing equipment. But now,
I think,
when was the last time anyone I went to the Congress or the Senate from the MBNA? It's just not like it used to be.
well, I think if you go to the meetings, Dad, and you're part of the community, you share ideas, you share experiences, things that you're going through. We need community. I think if you
among the members,
if you participate, then it, I think there is more value. I think we, for what we use it for, it's questionable.
Yeah, the membership is it's you do get from other members. There are some very transparent members who do give suggestions to other members. So and that's nice, especially to new guys coming out who are training, and that is good. And they do have the meetings. So you're right about that. There's also communication, and it's just hopefully it's quality over quantity now.
Yeah. What's one of the most important things you learned from your father?
Well, he as everyone knows, he died suddenly, and I wasn't even
I didn't know that.
But. Yeah, he wasn't working at Surplus Record. I mean, I wasn't working at Surplus Record. He was, and luckily I had, lots of lunches but I was fortunate that everybody at Surplus Record, including my grandfather, they did not want to sell the business. They wanted me to come to work there, and so I left the company where I was working after college and went and got trained. And like I said, machinery dealers all over the country, including, your dad and your grandfather, and everybody trained me and taught me what was going on, which was, including our Dick Bush and our sales guys. So I didn't really have that many lessons from my dad, other than just general descriptions of Surplus Record, because I wasn't working there yet. He wanted. So
you learned more from your
elsewhere.
Grandfather.
My grandfather was still alive, but he was in his 80s, and that was his only child was my dad, and he was very, very, very upset and sad, and so my grandfather really didn't train me much. My grandmother was okay, but it was really Dick Bush, our salesman for the Midwest, East Midwest. He was very good at training. He came from Cleveland to Chicago every month for a week, and trained me, and so did the circulation director, and so did the advertising director. They all did a great job. So, and then, like I said, the other big training back in 1982 was the like all the machinery dealers and the electrical advertiser dealers, they all took me in and taught me everything. It was great. And the MBNA was very good too. And so was ESA members, the Electrical Conference Association. So that's what happened. It's that was a sad situation, but you know, we survived and
who's your successor?
That was the, you know, and my brother, who never really worked at Surplus Record, he was out in San Francisco working. He was the one I said earlier. That was always great that he said in 1995,
Yeah.
you know, Tommy, you got to start the internet. You got to put all Surplus Record on the internet. What's the internet? And he told me, and I said, and our
what's going to happen in the future?
IT guy did it immediately, Jim Jacobus. So we were
Tom,
lucky.
Tom, what is the, do you have a successor or some kind of?
Oh, yeah, my son, Tommy, so he'd be my grandfather, Thomas M, or Thomas P, and my dad, Thomas M, and me, Thomas C, and Tommy is Thomas M.
So he's
Thomas
the fourth.
Paula. Yeah, and he's
Nice.
And he's starting to get trained now, and he's going to start. He'll be full time soon, and he's been to MBNA meetings, and he's been to other association meetings, and he's met a lot of the dealers.
And he believes in the print?
Yes. Yeah, he does. He hopes that it continues, just like we all do. But he also believes in the internet and is a lot more familiar and knowledgeable and skilled about the internet than I am.
How old is he?
32.
Okay.
So he's going to be good, and he's going to be. But yeah, I'm happy because I he'll do things like my dad did and like I did, where he comes up with ideas that never would have, all these ideas that he'll come up with that I never would have thought of in the next, years or so.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Always good to catch up, and
thank you.
Look forward to talking to you again really soon.
And thank you. And by the way, that 1982 training was in. Am I right? Was at Oak Forest? Where was it? No, that's where. Where was that when I went to?
We moved.
Where was that where I went to see you guys?
That was in South Chicago Avenue.
What happened in 1982?
Yeah,
That's when he came
82, 83. And that's where it was kind of, wasn't it kind of near the, it was the South Side, right? Yeah.
Right. That was a transition from the South Side to Oak Forest.
Yeah, that's then you went. So I was at your other place first. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
No, I remember that well. So thank you and thank your dad for all the training that happened, because I didn't have any idea what was going on. Appreciate that.